Robyn Duda. Welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you today. You are the CEO of RacquetX, a leading event expert and entrepreneur. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and RacquetX?
Sure. Myself, not quite as interesting, but I've been in the event industry for almost 20 years, which is really a scary number to say out loud. But I've done, I can't close to everything in the event space, but where my heart lies is in strategy, fixing, launching, trying to understand what makes industries tick, really, and then designing a space and an experience around that. So, I spent 10 years in tech. I started in weddings. I've done trade shows, I've done conferences, I've done road shows, you name it, B2B, B2C, and some investors that I know, and my co-founder, Marco Ghiberti, they came to me and they said, do you want to do your thing, but, kind of have a bigger stake in it and launch this new concept of servicing the entire racket sport industry from maker to player, which in the B2C and B2B market. And I said, hell yeah, this sounds like an amazing opportunity to join what I do really well with an industry that I think there's some white space in a place for this, which is great, and be able to have some fun at the same time.
That sounds great. And so how did you make that decision to go from different types of events, you said luxury weddings, for example, and now jump into the sports industry?
Oh, man. Well, the weddings were my first, luxury weddings were my first job out of college. And I can't say that I lasted that long in that space. When I was in college, I planned I went to Muhlenberg College, is a small school in Pennsylvania. And after I quit basketball, they had this event that was called the Henry Awards. And seemed small at the time, but it was life altering for me. The school gave like $15,000 or $20,000 to a committee to put on this like black tie gala for everyone. That was everything from student leader to best faculty to service worker, you name it. You got to create something really, really beautiful to bring community together and start to connect. And I think that's when I realized my love behind what I do is getting to understand humans and people. And then how do you create moments to get them to connect better and then engage? So I quit basketball and started doing that. And I knew this was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So the transitions between each of my different phases of my career were pretty easy because it was just stretching and trying out what I was doing in different ways. So, weddings certainly didn't last that long, but I do know that I loved the magic part of it. I loved the ambiance. I loved the beauty that came along with weddings, and then the meeting of what was happening with those couples and those families, and how were you, how do you celebrate that? And I took that into tech quickly after on the tech media side of the house. And then it was, how do you launch IBM's Watson all over the world to a very specific type of audience, IT audience, and really figuring that out. So the switching was more of how can I stretch my skills more? And then where was there a new opportunity? I moved into the trade show side of the house, which I did not want to. I resisted for a very long time. I did hundreds of events a year in my other roles in technology, and then moved to take on a chemical event. That was one of them a year. And it was all rooted in the same thing. It's, again, like I said, it's understanding people, getting to to design moments for them that matter. So the transitions were, like I said, were very easy, but the product in the end was always, kind of a new challenge.
I feel like you need to be very agile to work in the event industry. And also, as you said, you have worked in different sectors. So except from that, what qualities do you think that you possess and that you need in order to work in events?
Oh gosh, you have to be flexible, very iterative. You have to kind of be a jack of all trades is what I say. And I teach a little bit. I've taught and I still coach and teach now. And I think what's so awesome about the event space is that you have to know a little bit about everything. You have to know how to budget properly, and you have to know finance, but also modeling, price modeling, trends. You need to know what every audience from Gen Z through, boomers and on, what their needs are, and what they're looking for. You have to understand what's marketable, how to market, operations, and everything from, well, you don't need to know the specifics. Hopefully there's a team, but you need to understand design, layout, spatial planning, wayfinding, through, content, what resonates with folks and what do they want to hear, what's in the news. You have to be up to date on as much as you can, which is really, really hard, to stay on top of trends, and then know the industry and get to know, what do they know that they need, and what don't they know that they need yet. And that's where I think the part, the magic kind of lies in, is like servicing what they know they need and what they're looking for, and then what don't they actually even know that they need yet. And if you can provide that, those two things for them, man, it's a pretty great opportunity. So I think you need to be flexible. I think because things change constantly in events, I think you need to know a little bit about a lot of things. And you have to be very calm under pressure. Nothing goes right, although it needs to look that way in front of the house, no matter what side you're looking on, from marketing to behind the scenes to sales. You need to always be in control, or at least look that way. An answer about RacquetX, which is
exactly that's what exactly.
All right. RacquetX is 3-day B2C event. So it's for everyone. March 24th through the 26th in Miami, at the Miami Beach Convention Center. It's during the middle weekend of the Miami Open, who we're collaborating with on a joint ticket sale. So there'll be a RacquetX night to kind of join all the action that's happening in Miami. And yeah, there's going to be a heavy conference component to this, trying to do both learn from each other and all the different sports and different disciplines within the different sports as a way to unify. And then, of course, and learn from each other. And then we're trying to have as many outside speakers as possible from other sports, other industries, etc. Great examples, Fanatics, talking about, the fan of the future and what does that look like that everyone could really appreciate and listen to, and no matter what sport you're in. And then there'll be an experiential, show floor, if you will, where we're going to have courts, tennis courts, pickleball courts, paddle courts, ping pong tables. We're trying to get a squash court in there, and there'll be all kind of things, from clinics to I've never played this before, let me get a paddle in my hand, I've played tennis my whole life, to seeing exhibitions and meeting different folks and trying out new products, and learning about some of the latest technologies that are out there.
That's so interesting. And to go back to what you said before, that when you arrange an event, that you will want to give them what they expect and also what they don't know that they want. So in the, racket sport industry, if you would call it that, we talked before we hit record here about like Padel in Sweden is really big, is coming also to the States, but you have pickleball. So this booming industry, what do you think that they expect from this event? And what do you think that you can add to give it something a little bit extra?
I think that, the expectation is, depending upon, who you are, I think it's discovery. And inspiration. I want to be inspired and see new things that maybe I've never seen before, whether it's a product, I hear someone speak, I'm able to try something on my own and discover, like I said, discovery. And then inspiration is, wow, it makes me want to play more of that. It makes me want to be better at that. If I'm in business, it's, how do I increase my growth, my revenues, etc. So I think that's the expected in events like this. And then there's the unexpected, which, of course, that's the magic that we're putting together now is, what are some of what we think are the cutting edge things across the multiple industries in business, not just sports, and not just tennis or paddle or pickleball, that people would be really surprised to hear from. And I think that's where some of the, like I mentioned, the fan of the future. Sure, but I think sports integrity is another area of where it's something that a lot of people think of, but maybe it's not typically on a conference agenda or something around that. But yeah, I think that, I think that everyone's expecting to do business, sell things, whether it's large things or small things, and meet new people. But every turn that we can do to make that as interesting as possible is, I think, where the magic happens.
That's amazing. And loving the integrity part as well. I'm a media partner of SIGA, Sport Integrity Global Alliance. So I've done some things with them as well. So loving that aspect of it.
We might have to tap into you for some advice on that one.
For sure, for sure.
I mean, I didn't know that's a whole part of the industry that, I mean, being transparent and honest, I never really thought about before, and how that affects fandom and viewership and trust and contracts with players and sponsorships and endorsements. And it's really, you just consume the sport or play the sport, and don't really think about a lot of the mechanics that go behind why I trust the entities that I do to interact with all those sports.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned also business opportunities. The racket sport industry is a $9 billion plus in dollar industry. So I mean, huge opportunities there as well for companies.
Yeah. Oh, and it's from, not just can I sell more stuff? It's investors. There are so many investors right now who are looking to get into the space, or are getting into the space that we don't know about yet. When we'd love to be a place where they discover, like I said, innovations, ideas, and concepts, or at least be inspired to put their more dollars into this industry. And I think that's a big part of our purpose. Is there has been explosive growth, and it's been incredible here in the US and around the world. How do we be the conduit to continue that growth? We've seen so many other industries that kind of rest on their laurels, or they think they're going to keep growing without, just because they have, or they're in a boom. And I think it's our responsibility to help make sure that we can elevate as many stories of success and failure, and connecting as many folks who have ideas to dollars and products to the hands of people who need to consume them. And I think that's where our responsibility lies in our mission.
Anything else you can share about the event? Will there be some specific speakers or some different workshops?
We released a few already publicly. There will be a handful coming, I would probably say next week. But so I can't spoil the news yet. And then a couple of big ones will be announced, some biggies thereafter. Like I said, Fanatics will be there. Katrina Adams, who is the former USTA CEO and former chairwoman of the USTA, and she has an amazing story over her time, and is going to do something really unique with us. Thomas Shields of the Dink, from a pickleball standpoint, he's on the media side, but has a really interesting perspective also as an entrepreneur and startup, but seeing from a media standpoint, being able to look at the bird's eye view of the entire industry. He has some really interesting perspectives he'll bring up. And then Marcos de Pilar, who is like I don't want to say the father of Padel in the US, but certainly kind of is. He's been the USPA president for some years, although just stepped down in the PP, the Pro Padel League. He's heavily involved in as a founder. So there's some interesting, and again, we're trying to be as equal opportunity to all the different sports and different sectors as possible. But we'll have there's a couple of really interesting club concepts that'll be presenting amongst some nonprofit initiatives that are doing some really neat things, and more. So definitely keep watch, because there's going to be some drops pretty soon.
That's really exciting. So if someone is listening and they want to attend or find more information, where can they do that?
Sure. TheRacquetX.com, the Racket, RACQUETX, letter X.com, TheRacquetX.com. Information is there. The website is being updated constantly. November 1st, there'll be some big updates to the site as well, but you can check out pricing, what we're all about. And certainly there's a new trend report that we just came out with last week. It's a coined one of 5 that we're going to be putting out this year. And this is really the overall industry. So even if you're just interested in starting to pique your interest and aren't ready to necessarily commit to coming down to Miami in March, although who wouldn't want to come to Miami in the late March? Please download that and take a look. It's about 40 some pages of really juicy information about the past, present, and future of racket sports.
That's really exciting. And I, for one, would love to be in Miami in March, because the weather in Sweden at that point will be horrific.
Well, you need to come, and you'll need to, we're setting up a podcast studio on the show floor. So you'll need to be able to set up and record a few at RacquetX. So we'll make sure that you're there, hopefully.
That would be great.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you play?
I play recreationally, you can say, but I played a lot during COVID, because in Sweden, for some reason, that was the only
sport or tennis.
Padel. Sorry, Padel. Yeah, I played Padel. For some reason in Sweden, that was the only sport you were allowed to play.
It's probably because it was socially distanced, and for the most part, you were outside or in a large space.
Yeah, so I did that a lot. Now it's approximately once a week, but loving the sport. It's really fun.
It's super fun. I wish we need more courts in the US, because so I could play.
I know there is one in New York City. Where I had
There's a few.
Yeah.
We actually did a US Open RacquetX launch party at Padel House in Brooklyn or in early September, which was great.
Yeah, so we have actually had an episode with the founder of Padel House. So if someone is interested,
Santiago.
Santiago's been on the podcast. So
oh, that's great.
If someone is interested, you just scroll back. I don't know, maybe it's 20 episodes ago, something like that. But yeah, that was a good one as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's a great sport. The whole industry has been amazing, and that's the one thing that my takeaway. And again, I've been an athlete my whole life. I very recreationally play racket sports. Hopefully I'll probably never be competitive at this stage of my life. However, I do enjoy it. I love it. But the takeaway that I've had is just how intimate the industry feels and how helpful they are. I just feel like there is such a great sense of community here among so many folks in so many different sports in the industry and different segments, that when we get everyone together, I really think it's going to be magic, because it's a really great group of people who care about sport and about their the success and the continued success of what everyone's doing.
Yeah. I asked you in the beginning to tell me a little bit about yourself and RacquetX, and you said that about yourself will not be so interesting, and I disagree strongly. So I want to, go back to your story. And you mentioned you played basketball. So, but as you know, as a kid, how were you introduced to sports, and what has been, your involvement with sports over the years?
Yeah, I was playing as soon as I could. My father was an athlete. He played Division II basketball, although I'm sure, he was living a bit vicariously through me. I would say my first experience, we were always outside. We were always playing. And that was just encouraged to be active. I was kindergarten going into first grade, and it was T-ball was my first experience with sports. It wasn't a great one. It's a great story, actually. If you give me a second, it was T-ball, so baseball, but at the time, T-ball, it's, baseball on a tee so that little kids can kind of hit it a little bit easier. However, they didn't play with softer balls or wiffle balls. We played with real baseball. So was I 5, not even 6 years old yet, or turning 6, I guess. And it was only for boys. My neighborhood and the friends that I had were all boys. I didn't have a ton of little girlfriends, and just the nature of my parents' friends in my neighborhood. So when everybody was going to play T-ball for the first time, I wanted to play too. So my dad said, well, you can do anything a boy can. So you're going to play T-ball too. And that was my one earliest stages of feminism, where it was, if you want to do something, Robyn, you fight to do it, or you make your own league. So the first practice, I went out there and I was the only little girl on the field of all boys. And my dad had only rolled the ball to me and tossed it. And then, there's the one kid whose parents like hold them back a couple of years. So they're really good at sports. And I ended up, long story short, he threw a fly ball up like very high for me to catch, and it shattered my orbital bone. So that was the end. That was my first go at sports, which you knew I must have loved it because I kept playing and kept playing and kept playing over the years. And eventually, I would say a year or two after that, probably somewhere in elementary school, grabbed a basketball, which was my dad's love, and started playing that and never really looked back on the basketball front. But I played everything. I ran track. I ran cross country. And I tried every sport, from soccer to field hockey under the sun as a kid. So I think there's something amazing that sports lend itself to the mind body connection, as well as I think team sports just provides such a leadership opportunity for so many people on how to really collaborate.
Completely agree. And sports is the best school for so many things. So we talk about,
Really
overcoming adversity and teamwork and leadership, and, the list goes on.
Yeah, it's some of my proudest, most, fun, amazing moments were all around some type of sport, some of the worst as well, but certainly wouldn't change any of it for the world.
Mm. So you said your father played Division II basketball, so you beat him there, right? Because you played Division I.
No, I played Division III. Well, actually,
Three?
so I was, the story is that I was being recruited my sophomore year, which is in high school, which is very early to start being recruited by colleges. I was good. And I got hurt. So they were in the stands all my sophomore year. I got hurt my junior year, and the Division I's, they say, okay, we could find another above average tall girl. So then they all dropped me, and I ended up going Division III, which actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise because I was done with basketball. I think that was heartbreaking at such an early age. And I don't think there's enough that's talked about the mental struggle. And I think they're starting to now, but man, I wish I had a therapist back then, because there was just a lot of not feeling good enough that happened around that moment that I didn't really realize was happening. But I was kind of done with basketball. I got to Muhlenberg. I was the first recruit. I went early decision, and I quit very soon after arrival because I just thought there were so many other things to do in life, and all I did was play basketball in high school. I traveled all over the place, playing with some of the best players that still or just retiring, I should say. We're kind of old. But yeah, so he did beat me technically, although I probably had more recruits and more letters to go places and more Division I visits than he had.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, because you broke your rib, right, junior year, and that's why
I bruised my liver too in that, which is like a really strange. Most people tear their ACL. Everyone's like, oh, knee injury, which that came later on as I was as a runner. But my I broke ribs and bruised a liver, and that was the end of that season. And that was kind of the end. I think I kind of lost my love then, but that was the pathway to college for me. So
I see. One door closes, another one opens, as they say.
And it all happens for a reason, and is a blessing in disguise, even though you don't realize it at the moment. So it's much more of a sad story than I think you were prepared.
No, I don't think so. We're getting there. We're going from the start. I read that you have described yourself as an overachiever. Is that something that has been your whole life, or is that something that has developed later on?
I mean, I don't know. Overachieving is a strange word, and then maybe I've used that. Maybe I have. I think that's I've been called that. I think there's a strive to be the best person that you can be, whether and whatever you're doing. My father, again, instilled in me, if you're going to do something, do it well, or don't do it at all, which I'm not sure. I think that you should, if you have a talent, you have a skill, I think that you should try your hardest at everything. And I think that's equated with overachieving if you're good at it. But it shouldn't come as a detriment at life and missing out on things. But yeah, I mean, I like to pour. I think if I'm And as a mantra for my father, if I'm going to do something, I do it 110%. You know, and you're going to get that out of me. You're certainly not going to get any shortage of trying out of me. And I think if that means that's overachieving, if once in a while you get successful, or you hit the jackpot a couple of times, then sure.
I understand. So yeah, you said you know, the injury, and that was your route to college. You studied business and political science. So how was that?
No idea why I studied political science. I thought, no idea why. I used none of that other than in political fodder in conversation. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. But the business part you have used quite a lot.
For sure. And you know, after I did quit basketball, I think the most that I got out of college was, I was involved in every single activity possible. And it was, you know, leadership positions, it was critical thinking, it was, you know, student body president, where we're representing the entire student body on issues to the administration. And I think I learned the most at doing all the different activities that I did, and certainly business, of course, too. I always knew that would come in handy. I'm now a fourth generation entrepreneur, but my whole father's side of the family were entrepreneurs, so I knew that would come in handy someday.
Yeah, and how did you decide to start your own business? Because I heard or I read again that you had a job, you resigned and decided to start your own company, and your boss was not very excited about it.
No. I think a lot of people weren't super excited about it. It was time. You know, I was in a corporate environment. I'm very entrepreneurial, and I like to think I'm business creative. And creative around problem solving and fixing situations. And it was at a big publicly traded company, and I did really well there, and they treated me very, very well. I think it was just time that I spread my wings further. I didn't feel like I was able to control the result of a lot of what I was doing in that setting. I think I was able to influence and impact a lot of people in a lot of industries, but in terms of designing something really that felt like it was wholeheartedly me, it wasn't possible in that place. Especially these are $13-15 million events that occur a couple of days a year. There's an infrastructure, and I'm fixing, and that's great, but there's only so much that you're ever allowed to fix. Nobody lets you just start from scratch because you think that this could be better. So I also thought that at the time that I could make a bigger impact with more companies, and I could start to do more pro bono work, and I can stretch my wings beyond these different spaces I was in. And it did. I was able to, you know, I've worked on the most random projects that you could think of. And nothing that I have done is really black or white, which is what I love. I think that's I was craving that change, to be able to have a full autonomy, but also just work with tons of different brands to see what their challenges and problems were, to come up with some overarching solutions that I think are critical in success of events.
So this company was Robyn Duda Creative, RDC, and an event management firm that executes your strategies. You mentioned strategies a lot. What type of strategies are you using?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is where the for lack of a better word, and maybe it's been a buzzword for a long time. So, you know, I go in and it was problem solving. It was, we're losing money, we're not growing, we don't have a system for this. How do we create, how do we get to know our customers better? What are we missing? And I'd be able to go in and look at, P&L modeling and the budgets, meet with the teams, meet with folks from the industry, and be able to kind of pinpoint where your vulnerabilities were as an event. What's controllable and what's uncontrollable? What can we fix here through process, through systems, through design and ingenuity? And what can't we control? And then how do you mitigate that? So that's what I would do. I'd go in and basically like come up with the blueprint to either launch a new event, fix something, or a particular problem. A lot of, things were, for much bigger companies where I was a part of a bigger team, kind of poking holes in things. And then, I have had a really amazing team and still have an amazing team of folks who can execute on those. So if a client were to want to okay, can you just do it for us? We have a team who can execute on all the things that we actually said, rather than just being fiction.
Yeah. So the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything has really changed the event space quite a lot. So now virtual events, of course, have become more popular. So now when we are past the pandemic, how is how much is virtual? How much is in person? Is there a mix? What is the strategies there?
I think every event in every industry, what the objective is, I think is what dictates what a brand should do, whether it's virtual or live. I personally, I don't think you're ever going to replace a handshake. I think that there's a place for virtual when it makes sense, or online content, of course. I think there's something really awesome about live streaming things, about being in real time to create virality and shareability, but also to give people a sneak peek. But then it drives you to hopefully want to come to this in the future. So I think the mix is different across the event landscape, depending upon what you're trying to achieve. I think that there's a place for both, for sure. I think that we got really tired of virtual, just sitting on Zooms all day long, or virtual events. So I think that reminded people of the need to connect much more than ever before. But I do think that people's time is more valuable, and how they measure that post-COVID. And I think that if you have to position yourself, people used to go to, I can't remember, I did some research a couple of years ago in the beginning of COVID. They went to like 6 or 7 or 8 events a year, and they're only going to 2 or 3 they have to pick from. So now you have to make sure that you're positioning yourself to be as unique and relevant as possible to get folks to want to travel, to sign up, to do all the things. And it's a little bit harder to do that now.
I understand. And a very interesting fact also that you said that they used to go to 8 and now it's 2, 3. The sustainability aspect, I would assume, also might weigh in there. That the virtual one is, of course, more sustainable. Doesn't mean that a live event cannot be sustainable.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bit of that too, for sure. And then on-site sustainability, I think everyone in the event space has a responsibility to do their best to minimize waste, impact, but all aspects of sustainability. I think we have a huge responsibility to make sure that we are creating as inclusive environments as possible, and that we are connecting with the communities that we enter. And I think there's a lot of events that do this really well, but I still think we have a long way to go as an industry. And we're going to try our hardest. I'm not claiming to be perfect at this, but we're very conscious and cognizant as we're building RacquetX to live by these practices, and to really push and to make sure that we're representing what our belief system, but also what we know the industry wants as well. It's an outdoor, most of what is done is, we're athletes, it's fans of sports, and I think it's a cause we can all get behind, as making sure that we're being as responsible as we can.
Definitely. Data is key to future strategy, I think you said sometimes. So how much are you leveraging?
Where you pulled some of this stuff is from the depths, the archives, but it's great. Thanks for reminding me.
I go deep in the research. So yeah, so how are you working with data and leveraging information from before to improve future events, for example?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I look at it from a design standpoint. How do we improve? How do we design? Data, what I will say, that the data that we all talk about is always protected under anything that I'm doing, at least, or that we're doing. That part's that's our gold. Our audience is, if we don't have people coming to our event because they don't trust us, we don't really have a brand. So that part is one piece, but data informing decisions. It's hard when we're starting from scratch and we're launching. There isn't a ton of data, but it's making sure. I do think that there's so much from the event space, from your typical page views, click-throughs, on site, where do people drop in the registration process, that can dictate where we might have vulnerabilities. And I think it's okay to change course, and to try, if we changed pricing on something recently because we saw the data, and we'd be stupid not to adjust to meet our consumers' needs. And that's where I think data in real time is really interesting. I think a lot of events that I've seen, at least over the years, kind of wait till the end. And they go over, here's all the data and we don't know what to do with it, or they've collected all of this stuff from a digital standpoint and they don't know what to do with it. And I think there's some key metrics that are really important in terms of year over year event success in order to dictate design moving forward. So I think that the more the better, but you have to have somebody who knows how to read it.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Something else that I think is really interesting when you're planning these events is that there are, let's say, RacquetX. Now it's Padel. Padel players can be, I don't know, from 5 to 95 years old. So you have a huge target group. So how do you work?
Pickleball too.
Sorry?
Pickleball. I mean, that's the
Yes, true. Pickleball as well.
Everyone plays from the backyard to their country club.
Yeah. So how do you work with your events to market yourselves to, let's say, Gen Z and all the other generation simultaneously in the same event?
It's really hard. It's definitely a challenge, which I love. I think, when we were coming up with our branding, I was plus it's B2B and B2C. So it isn't just, business conferences tend to have a certain look and feel to them. Consumer events tend to have festivals look a little different. We're trying to combine all of these concepts. So I wanted to go with something that kind of was cross-generational, simple, and to the point, but vague enough that attracts everyone. It's really hard. But we do, we can't do age-based marketing. That's really hard. But we certainly can. But we do a lot of persona work. Who are our target audiences? What are their needs? What are they looking for? And then how do we cater messaging to them? And we're going to, over the course of the next 5 months, be as specific as possible so that you, depending upon who we're messaging or who we're trying to attract, understands why you should be at this event. Not just come because it's something for everyone. While it is, there has to be something personalized that makes me want me to drive to come to that. So it's hard, but it's a lot of research and kind of planning ahead to make sure that the content we're producing maps to all our different personas, that our marketing message speaks to that, and we make sure that you don't have to try and figure it out yourself. What can we serve you up that we know you're looking for, and then be open to feedback on what else are you, audience, looking to see, and what are you looking to achieve, and what are your goals, both personally and business, and making sure that that's included so that they understand, that persona or that individual person understands the value that we're trying to put forth.
Do you also take in consideration gender when you do the marketing, or to apply to different genders, or is that not as strong as different generations?
No. I wouldn't say we look at gender at all. We try to be as inclusive as possible when it comes to that part of the messaging. It's more about needs as an individual. And making sure that we're playing up to, what I always think we want to solve a problem, right? I think the best things that we do are best companies that come up with things. It's not just, this is a great idea, let me push this forward. It's what's a problem that, or a blank space that you're trying to put something into. So I think making sure that we understand that, what are the challenges of the industry, and then addressing a bit of that.
See. So with 20 years, you said, working in events, what would be your best advice for someone who wants to work in event management?
Oh man, find something that you can get your teeth in, whether it's a nonprofit in your local area. I'm a great example. I just dug in and started doing stuff at my school. And then that's your resume builder. I think the great part about events, like I mentioned, is you do need to be a jack of all trades. So anyone in one of those particular areas can kind of get in and find a place. But, get involved, and a lot of times it's kind of volunteering first to get the event stuff on your resume. There's definitely degrees in this. There's methodologies that you could do. You can use a lot of things, but, I would say just, get involved in something that you're really passionate about, from a grassroots standpoint. And then, start to build your resume from there.
So get involved early and study political science.
I don't know if you need political science. Hey, I planned the best birthday parties as a kid and still in my 20s. So, I mean, that was I knew that was something that I loved, and you go after it. I begged someone to hire me in New York. I knocked on every door I possibly could, because I knew this was my superpower, is connecting people, and I do that through events. And I wasn't going to let up until someone let me in. And then, of course, that ended up being weddings, and it wasn't the right in, but it got me to New York, where I thought at the time, in, early 2000s, where I needed to be. And it got me in the space. And it reaffirmed for me that I loved it. And that I wanted to just pursue different angles. There's so many different jobs that have, that where events are involved in. So be open, I think, to possibility, that maybe the whole job might not be events, or it might be something that's corporate or an industry you're not, interested in. But if it's something you really want to do, just go after it, apply, and just keep at it. I mean, I sent resumes to hundreds of places before I got a call. So.
Yeah, that's good to know as well, that rejection is common, and it's just keep going, the consistency to continue to send these CVs and not stop at the first sign of rejection.
It's an amazing career. I mean, it's for me, my journey, my career has been incredible. I could have never thought that planning events would take me all over to every corner of the world, meeting people that I'm still friends with everywhere globally, and that I would have been able to impact so many different businesses and industries. It's just been awesome, and I don't think the ride's ever going to stop for me.
I hope it continues for a very long time.
Me too. Unless I get too tired. Events can be very grueling, especially launching an event like RacquetX. It's amazing, but it is all you think about, which is, I mean, it's great, but it's definitely need to sleep on March 27th.
Yeah, I'm sure. So the final question that I always ask is, who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this podcast?
If he had time, I think he's a really interesting guy. David Michael. He is the CTO of the LA Olympics. So he's the chief technology officer of the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. He's had a really interesting career. He started in events where I was as the CTO, but he moved to the XFL as the CTO, and he has like the tech side of sports now, which I think is a really fascinating place to be, especially at that level, from the Olympic standpoint. I think, I've admired the folks, they're called the Overtime League. If you haven't heard of them, they're based here actually in Atlanta. That's who I'd want to listen to. I don't know them personally, but I think what they've done and kind of building immersive platforms for new players based around technology is very, very cool.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I will definitely look into that. Robyn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great to be here.